The crystal throne room was silent except for the soft hum of the energy shields that protected the palace. Empress Zarathis sat perfectly still, her silver skin gleaming under the pale blue lights. Her 6 arms rested on the armrests of her throne, and her large black eyes stared at nothing. Today marked 5 years since the war ended. 5 years since the Battle of Crimson Nebula. 5 years since she lost everything that mattered. The Velthari Empire now controlled 47 star systems. They had won the war against the savage Kethmori horde. Victory parades filled the streets of 1,000 worlds. Yet the Empress felt nothing but emptiness. Her daughters were gone. Princess Lyravel and Princess Miravel had been only 12 years old when the war reached their home world of Zirion Prime. The Empress had sent them away on a transport ship with their guards and teachers. It was supposed to be safe. The ship was supposed to reach the protected inner worlds. Instead, the transport exploded near the outer rim. Security cameras showed the bright flash as the ship's engines overloaded. Search teams found only scattered metal pieces floating in space. No bodies, no survivors. Nothing. The Empress had searched for months. She sent her best ships and her finest soldiers to look for any sign that her daughters might have lived. They found nothing. After a year, even her most loyal advisors told her to stop. The girls were gone. Your Majesty. The voice of High Chancellor Vexrin broke the silence. The old Velthari male approached the throne slowly, his 4 legs clicking on the crystal floor. The memorial service preparations are complete. The representatives from allied worlds have arrived. Zarathis did not look at him. How many worlds sent delegates? 32, Your Majesty. Including the humans. The Empress finally moved, turning her head slightly. Humans? Why? They fought with us in the final campaigns, Your Majesty. Their mercenary companies helped break the Kethmori lines at Vega Station. It seemed appropriate to invite them. The Empress remembered the humans vaguely. Small creatures with only 2 arms and 2 legs. They looked weak, but her generals said they fought like demons when cornered. Strange creatures from a small world called Earth. Very well, she said. Begin the ceremony at sunset. High Chancellor Vexrin bowed and left. The Empress returned to her silent watch. Hours passed. Outside the tall windows, the 3 suns of the capital world began to set. The sky turned from blue to purple to deep red. Soon it would be time for the memorial service. The Empress stood slowly. Her royal robes, made from the finest silkworms of Kalos Prime, fell around her like liquid silver. She had not worn bright colors since the day her daughters died. Everything was silver or black or gray now. She walked through the palace corridors. Servants and guards bowed as she passed, but none dared speak to her. They had learned to fear her cold silence over the years. The laughing, gentle mother who once played games with her twin daughters was gone. In her place was a ruler who showed no mercy and no warmth. The memorial hall was full of beings from across the galaxy. Tall Altarians with their blue skin and flowing tentacles. Short, stocky Corvani, with their thick shells and multiple eyes. Representatives from dozens of species who had fought against the Kethmori. At the far end of the hall stood a wall of black stone. Carved into it were millions of names. Every soldier, every civilian, every child who died in the war. Near the top, in letters of gold, were 2 names that made the Empress's heart ache. Princess Lyravel Zarathis, Princess Miravel Zarathis. The ceremony began with traditional songs of mourning. Speakers talked about sacrifice and victory. They praised the brave dead and spoke of a better future. The Empress heard none of it. She stared at her daughters' names and remembered. Lyravel had loved to study the stars. She knew the names of every constellation visible from their home world. She wanted to be an explorer when she grew up, to find new worlds and new life forms. Miravel was different. She loved sword fighting and strategy games. She would spend hours in the practice halls with her weapons master, learning ancient combat forms. She dreamed of being a great general like her mother. Both girls had their mother's silver skin and black eyes. Both had laughed like tinkling bells. Both had hugged their mother goodbye on that last morning, promising to be brave and to take care of each other. The Empress had promised to see them soon. She had lied without knowing it. Your Majesty. High Chancellor Vexrin stood beside her. The human delegation wishes to pay their respects. The Empress looked toward the small group of humans standing near the back of the hall. They looked so different from everyone else. Pink or brown skin instead of the blues and greens and silvers of other species, hair growing from their heads in strange colors. They seemed so fragile, so young, but their eyes held something the Empress recognized. Pain. Loss. These humans knew what it meant to lose people they loved. Let them approach, she said. The humans walked forward. Their leader was a male with brown skin and short black hair. Scars covered his face and arms. He wore a simple military uniform with few decorations. Unlike the other representatives who had brought flowers or gifts, this human carried nothing. He stopped before the throne and bowed in the human way, bending at the waist. When he straightened, he looked directly into the Empress's eyes. Most beings feared to meet her gaze, but this human did not look away. "Your Majesty," he said in broken Velthari language, "my people honor your loss. We know the pain of losing those we love." Something in his voice made the Empress pay attention. This was not just empty ceremony talk. This human spoke from experience. "What is your name?" she asked. "Captain Marcus Chen, Your Majesty. I commanded the 3rd Human Assault Regiment during the siege of Corvin Prime." The Empress nodded. She remembered reports about that battle. The humans had held their position for 3 days against impossible odds, buying time for the evacuation of 2 million civilians. "You lost soldiers in that battle," she said. "Yes, Your Majesty. Good soldiers, good friends." Marcus paused, then added quietly, "But we completed our mission. Every civilian made it to safety." The ceremony continued, but the Empress found herself watching this human captain. There was something about him that seemed familiar, though she was sure they had never met. Perhaps it was the way he carried his grief, like a heavy weight that he refused to put down but would not let break him. When the ceremony ended and the representatives began to leave, the Empress remained in her throne. Tomorrow would be another day of ruling her empire, making decisions that affected billions of lives, and pretending that victory meant something without her daughters to share it. She did not know that this human captain carried a secret that would change everything. She did not know that in a few short days, her world would be turned upside down by 5 simple words. "Your Majesty, your daughters live." 3 days after the memorial service, Captain Marcus Chen stood outside the palace gates in the pouring rain. The Velthari guards looked at him with suspicion. No one requested private meetings with the Empress, especially not humans. "State your business," growled Commander Thekvor, the head of palace security. His 4 arms crossed over his massive chest, and his scales darkened to show his annoyance. Marcus pulled out a small metal device and activated it. A hologram appeared showing his military records and service history. "I have information about the war that only the Empress can hear. All war reports were filed months ago, human. The Empress does not waste time with old battle stories." Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice. "This is about her daughters." The guard's expression changed instantly. His hand moved to his weapon. "How dare you speak of the lost princesses? Guards, wait!" Marcus raised his hands but did not step back. "I have proof. Physical evidence. Let me show you." Commander Thekvor hesitated. Speaking about the royal family without permission was punishable by death, but something in the human's voice made him pause. This was not some crazy person seeking attention. This was a soldier who had fought in the war, a man with honest eyes and steady hands. "You have 1 minute," Thekvor said. "Choose your words carefully." Marcus reached slowly into his jacket and pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. He unwrapped it carefully, revealing a pendant made of rare blue crystal. The crystal was cut into the shape of a star, and it glowed with its own inner light. Commander Thekvor's eyes went wide. Every Velthari knew that pendant. It was half of the twin star set, given only to royal twins at birth. Princess Lyravel had worn one exactly like this. "Where did you get this?" Thekvor whispered. "From Princess Lyravel herself, 3 weeks ago, on a mining station in the Void sector." The guard commander stared at the pendant for a long moment. Then he grabbed Marcus by the arm. "Come with me. Now." They moved quickly through the palace corridors. Servants pressed themselves against the walls as the massive guard rushed past with the human. They climbed marble stairs and walked through halls decorated with art from 1,000 worlds. Finally, they reached the throne room doors. "Wait here," Thekvor ordered. He went inside alone. Marcus could hear muffled voices from behind the doors. First, the guard's deep rumble. Then a sharp female voice that grew louder and angrier. Something crashed against the wall. Then, silence. The doors opened. Commander Thekvor looked pale. "She will see you." "But human. If you are lying about this, if this is some cruel joke, she will kill you slowly. I will not be able to stop her." Marcus nodded. "I understand." The throne room was just as he remembered from the memorial service, but now it felt different. Colder, more dangerous. The Empress sat on her crystal throne, but she was not the composed ruler from 3 days ago. Her black eyes burned with anger and something that might have been hope. Her 6 arms gripped the armrests so tightly that the crystal was starting to crack. "Approach," she commanded in a voice like winter wind. Marcus walked forward until he stood before the throne. He bowed as he had at the ceremony, then straightened and met her gaze. "You claim to have seen my daughters," the Empress said. "They are dead. Their ship exploded 5 years ago." "No, Your Majesty, it did not." Marcus pulled out a small datapad and activated it. A holographic display appeared, showing star charts, ship records, and navigation data. The transport ship did explode, but not from engine failure. It was attacked by Kethmori raiders. The Empress leaned forward. "Impossible. We found the wreckage." "You found part of the wreckage, Your Majesty. The raiders took what they could before the ship broke apart, including the emergency pods, including your daughters." Marcus touched the datapad again. The hologram changed to show grainy security footage from a space station. 2 young Velthari girls could be seen being dragged off a ship by creatures in dark armor. This footage is from Nexus Station, a trading post on the rim. It was taken 6 days after the transport explosion. The girls match the physical descriptions of your daughters. Same age, same silver skin, same facial structure. The Empress stood so quickly that her throne cracked. "Where are they now?" Marcus hesitated. This was the hard part. "Your Majesty. They were sold into slavery. The Kethmori raiders traded them to the Syndicate." The word hit the Empress like a physical blow. The Syndicate was the most powerful criminal organization in the galaxy. They controlled illegal mining operations, slave markets, and worse things that civilized beings preferred not to think about. "How do you know this?" she demanded. Marcus pulled out another device. This time, the hologram showed a different scene. A crowded slave market on some distant world. The recording was poor quality, but 2 figures near the back looked familiar. "I spent 3 years tracking rumors and following leads," Marcus said. "I checked every slave market, every mining operation, every place the Syndicate operates. 2 months ago, I found them." The Empress stared at the hologram. The figures were older now. Teenage, rather than children. But she would know her daughters anywhere. "Are you certain?" Marcus unwrapped the crystal pendant again. "Princess Lyravel gave me this. She said to tell you that she and her sister still have their morning star song. She said you would know what that means." The Empress made a sound that was half sob, half roar. The morning star song was something she had sung to her daughters when they were babies. A lullaby that only the 3 of them knew. No one else in the galaxy could know those words. "Where are they?" the Empress whispered. "Tartarus Station. It's a mining operation in the Void sector. The Syndicate uses it to mine rare metals from asteroid fields. The working conditions are terrible. Most slaves die within 2 years." The Empress was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was deadly calm. "Prepare the fleet. We will reduce Tartarus Station to space dust and rescue my daughters." "Your Majesty, that won't work." The Empress turned to stare at him. No one told her what would or would not work. "Explain." "Tartarus Station is protected by gravity wells from nearby neutron stars. Big ships can't get close without being torn apart. It also has automated defenses that can destroy a whole fleet. But more importantly..." Marcus paused, knowing his next words might get him killed. "The Syndicate has a policy. If they're attacked, they execute all the slaves before evacuating." The crystal throne cracked completely. The Empress stepped down from the broken pieces, her eyes blazing. Then how do you propose we save them? A small team, maybe 6 or 8 people. We go in quietly, disguised as slave traders or miners. We locate your daughters, get them out along with as many other slaves as possible, then destroy the station from the inside. We? The Empress raised one eyebrow. Marcus nodded. I've been planning this for weeks, Your Majesty. I have detailed maps of the station, schedules of the guard rotations, and contacts who can get us inside. But I need your permission, and maybe 2 or 3 Velthari soldiers who can confirm your daughters' identities. Why? The Empress asked suddenly. Why do you care about my daughters? What do you gain from this? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Your Majesty, I had a daughter once. She died in the first Kethmori attack on Earth. She was about the same age as your girls when they disappeared. The Empress studied his scarred face. She saw the pain he carried, the same pain she had lived with for 5 years. What was her name? Sarah Chen. She wanted to be a doctor when she grew up. She would have been 17 now. The Empress understood. This human was not doing this for reward or glory. He was doing it because he knew what it meant to lose a child. He was doing it because somewhere in a dangerous place, 2 young girls needed help, and he was someone who could provide it. Very well, Captain Chen, she said. You have my permission. Take whatever resources you need. Bring my daughters home. Marcus bowed again. Thank you, Your Majesty. I promise you this. I will bring them back, or I will die trying. As he left the throne room, the Empress stared at the broken crystal of her throne. For the first time in 5 years, she felt something besides emptiness. She felt hope, burning like a small flame in the darkness of her heart. Her daughters were alive. Against all odds, against all probability, they were alive. And now, with the help of a human warrior who understood loss and love and the refusal to give up, she was going to get them back. The war room deep beneath the palace had not been used since the final days of the Kethmori conflict. Now it buzzed with activity as Marcus Chen spread maps and data files across the central table. Holographic displays showed star charts, station layouts, and security protocols. Empress Zarathis stood at the head of the table, flanked by her best military commanders. For the first time in years, she wore her war armor instead of flowing robes. The black and silver metal made her look like the fierce general who had conquered 47 star systems. Tartarus Station, Marcus began, pointing to a 3D model floating above the table. Built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Population: approximately 3,000. 2,000 slaves, 800 syndicate guards, 200 administrators and technicians. High Chancellor Vexrin studied the display with his 4 eyes. The defenses look impossible to breach, Marcus nodded. 36 plasma cannons, automated missile systems, and energy shields powered by the station's mining reactors. Plus those neutron stars I mentioned. The gravity fields would crush any ship bigger than a shuttle before it could get within weapons range. General Korthok, the Empress's top military advisor, pointed at the model with one of his clawed hands. What about a small assault force? Drop pods launched from outside the gravity wells. The Syndicate would detect them coming from hours away, Marcus replied. Remember, they kill all the slaves if they think they're under attack. We need a different approach. The Empress had been silent throughout the briefing, but now she spoke. You mentioned disguising ourselves as traitors. Explain. Marcus activated another display, showing shipping records and cargo manifests. The Syndicate needs constant supplies, food, equipment, new mining tools. Traders visit Tartarus Station every few weeks. If we can get the right permits and documentation, we can land a small ship without raising suspicion. And then, asked General Korthok, we locate the princesses. Disable the station's communication systems so they can't call for help. Then fight our way to the landing bays with as many slaves as we can save. Commander Thekvor crossed his arms. You make it sound simple. This station has 800 guards. Marcus smiled grimly. Not all at once. Most of them patrol the mining areas or guard the outer perimeter. The slave quarters are only lightly guarded. The syndicate doesn't expect slaves to fight back. The Empress studied the tactical displays. What do you need from us? A ship that looks like a trader vessel. Forged documents that will pass their security checks. And maybe 3 or 4 Velthari soldiers who can blend in as my crew. I will go myself, the Empress declared. Every person in the room started talking at once. The generals protested that it was too dangerous. The chancellors argued that the empire needed her leadership. Commander Thekvor said he would resign before allowing it. Marcus raised his voice above the others. Your Majesty, with respect. That's exactly what we can't do. The room went silent. No one spoke to the Empress that way. I understand you want to save your daughters personally, Marcus continued, meeting her burning gaze. But your face is known across the galaxy. Every bounty hunter, every syndicate informant would recognize you instantly. The mission would fail before we even landed. The Empress's 6 hands clenched into fists, but she did not argue. She knew he was right. Then who do you recommend? She asked. Marcus gestured to 2 officers standing near the back of the room. Captain Velandra, from your special forces. She's young enough to pass as a trader, skilled enough to handle herself in a fight, and Lieutenant Kexrin, from intelligence. He knows syndicate procedures and can help with the technical systems. Both officers stepped forward and saluted. Captain Velandra was a veteran of deep reconnaissance missions. Her silver skin was crossed with scars, and her eyes held the steady calm of someone who had faced death many times. Lieutenant Kexrin was smaller and less obviously military, which would help him blend in as a civilian crew member. What about the human side? Asked the Empress. Marcus activated his communicator. I've already contacted my old unit. 3 of my best soldiers are en route. They volunteered when I told them what we were doing. Why would humans risk their lives for our people? Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said, Your Majesty, humans have a saying, no one left behind. It means we don't abandon people who need help, even if they're not our own species. Your daughters have been left behind for 5 years. That ends now. General Korthak pulled up files on the human soldiers Marcus had requested. Sergeant Rodriguez, explosives expert. Corporal Johnson, communications specialist. Private Williams, medic and pilot. He looked up. Impressive records. They fought at Corvan Prime and Sigma Station. Good soldiers, Marcus agreed. More importantly, good people. They won't break under pressure, and they won't leave anyone behind. The Empress walked around the table, studying the mission plans from different angles. What are our chances of success? Marcus considered his answer carefully. If everything goes perfectly? Maybe 60%. If we run into complications, maybe 30%. And the chances that my daughters will survive if we do nothing? Marcus met her eyes. 0, Your Majesty. Slaves on Tartarus Station don't live long. The working conditions are designed to kill them within 2 years. Your daughters have already been there, longer than most slaves survive. The room fell silent except for the hum of the holographic displays. Everyone understood what Marcus was saying. This mission was dangerous, maybe impossible. But it was the only chance the princesses had. How long do you need to prepare? The Empress asked. My team can be ready in 3 days. We'll need another day to modify the ship and prepare our cover identities. Call it a week total. High Chancellor Vexrin raised an objection. Your Majesty, perhaps we should consider negotiating with the syndicate. Offer them money or territory in exchange for the princesses. Marcus shook his head. The syndicate doesn't negotiate for individual slaves, even royal ones. They see any attempt at negotiation as weakness. They'd probably kill your daughters just to send a message. The Empress was quiet for a long time, staring at the holographic model of Tartarus Station. Finally, she spoke. Captain Chen, you have my authorization to proceed. Take whatever you need. Spare no expense. And, Marcus saluted in the human way. Thank you, Your Majesty. We won't let you down. As the meeting began to break up, and officers hurried away to make preparations, the Empress remained behind with Marcus. Captain, she said quietly, what if my daughters don't want to come home? What if 5 years of slavery have changed them? Marcus thought of his own daughter, of the dreams that had died with her. Your Majesty, I can't promise they'll be the same children you remember. Surviving what they've survived changes people. But they're still your daughters. They're still the girls who sang Morning Star songs with you. The love is still there, even if everything else has changed. The Empress nodded slowly. Bring them home, Captain. Whatever they've become, wherever their hearts are now, bring them home. That night, while the palace prepared for the most desperate mission in the Empire's history, the Empress stood on her balcony looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the light of her world's 3 suns, her daughters were waiting in darkness. She had spent 5 years believing they were dead. Now she had to spend the next week believing they could be saved. She wasn't sure which was harder, the despair she had known, or the hope she now carried. But she had seen something in the human captain's eyes that convinced her to trust him. Marcus Chen was a man who understood loss and refused to accept it. He was someone who would keep fighting even when victory seemed impossible. For the first time in 5 years, Empress Zarathis went to sleep, believing that tomorrow might bring her daughters home. The cargo ship, Distant Prophet, looked like every other trader vessel that visited Tartarus Station. Its hull was scarred from asteroid impacts, its engines were loud enough to wake the dead, and its cargo holds smelled like industrial lubricants and stale food. Marcus Chen stood on the bridge wearing the rough clothes of a freelance trader. His team was scattered throughout the ship, each playing their role. Sergeant Rodriguez posed as his mechanic, her tools hiding enough explosives to level half the station. Corporal Johnson monitored communications while pretending to be a cargo supervisor. Private Williams checked their medical supplies, knowing they would likely need them soon. Captain Velandra and Lieutenant Kexran stayed in the cargo hold, posing as exotic goods traders. Their Velthari features would help sell the story that they were legitimate merchants with access to rare Imperial products. Incoming transmission from Tartarus Station, reported Johnson. They're requesting our cargo manifest and trade permits. Marcus nodded. Send them the forged documents. Remember, we're carrying mining equipment and food supplies. Nothing suspicious. The documents had cost a fortune on the black market, but they were perfect copies of legitimate syndicate paperwork. Marcus held his breath as they waited for a response. Clearance granted, Johnson announced. They're directing us to Docking Bay 7. As their ship approached Tartarus Station, Marcus got his first real look at their target. The asteroid had been hollowed out and reinforced with metal structures. Docking bays dotted its surface like open wounds. Ships of all sizes came and went, carrying cargo and workers to feed the station's hungry mining operations. Remember the plan, Marcus said into his communicator. We dock, unload our fake cargo, and split up. Velandra and I will locate the princesses. Kexran handles the communication systems. Rodriguez sets charges on the power generators. Johnson maintains our escape route. Williams stays with the ship and prepares for casualties. Aliment. The docking process took 20 minutes. Syndicate inspectors came aboard and checked their cargo. Marcus played the role of a grumpy trader annoyed by delays and paperwork. The inspectors found nothing suspicious and cleared them for shore leave. Tartarus Station's interior was a maze of tunnels carved from living rock. The air was thick with dust and the smell of unwashed bodies. Everywhere Marcus looked, he saw slaves working under the watchful eyes of armed guards. Most of the slaves were humanoid, but he spotted members of a dozen different species. Marcus and Velandra made their way toward the slave quarters, following maps they had memorized during the mission planning. The corridors were crowded with workers heading to and from their shifts. No one paid attention to 2 more traders looking for opportunities. There, Velandra whispered, pointing down a side tunnel. Guard Station 12. According to our intelligence, that's where they keep the high-value slaves. They approached carefully. 2 syndicate guards sat at a checkpoint, checking identification cards as slaves passed through. Behind them, Marcus could see rows of sleeping chambers carved into the rock walls. We need a distraction, Velandra said. Marcus smiled and pulled out a bottle of alien liquor from his jacket. Leave that to me. He walked up to the guards, swaying slightly as if he had been drinking. Hey there, friends. You look like you could use a break from all this hard work. The guards looked at him suspiciously. One of them, a large creature with multiple arms and rows of sharp teeth, growled a warning. Easy. Easy, Marcus said, holding up the bottle. Just thought you might want to try some genuine Altarian fire wine. Very expensive stuff. Very rare. The guards exchanged glances. Off-duty drinking was technically against regulations, but supervision was light in the outer sections. Just one drink, said the smaller guard. Then you go away. Marcus poured drinks for both guards while Valandra slipped past them into the slave quarters. The liquor was actually a mild sedative that would leave the guards sleepy and inattentive without causing obvious impairment. Inside the slave quarters, Valandra moved quickly between the sleeping chambers. Most held exhausted workers resting between shifts. She was looking for younger slaves, prisoners who might have been held longer than the usual few months. In Chamber 17, she found them. Princess Lyravel was tending to the wounds of a young slave who had been beaten by the guards. Her silver skin was dulled by years of poor nutrition and hard labor, but her careful, gentle movements showed she had become a healer. Princess Miravel sat nearby, sharpening a makeshift knife, with the focused intensity of a warrior preparing for battle. Both girls were older now, nearly 18. But Valandra recognized them immediately. They had their mother's facial structure, and the distinctive mark of Velthari royalty. Eyes that changed color with their emotions. Valandra approached slowly, not wanting to startle them. Lyravel? Miravel? Both princesses looked up sharply. Their eyes shifted from brown to silver to gold as they recognized their own language spoken by someone who was not a guard or a slave master. Who are you? Miravel demanded, moving to shield her sister. The makeshift knife appeared in her hand as if by magic. My name is Captain Valandra. I serve your mother, Empress Zarathis. We're here to take you home. Lyravel's eyes went wide. Mother? Is she alive? Very much alive, Valandra said. And very determined to get you back. But we need to move quickly. There's a rescue team here, and we have a ship waiting. Miravel did not lower her weapon. How do we know you're not lying? How do we know this isn't some syndicate trick? Valandra pulled out the crystal pendant that Marcus had shown the Empress. Both girls gasped when they saw it. Your mother knows about the Morning Star song, Valandra said quietly. She's been searching for you for 5 years. She never gave up hope. The princesses looked at each other, communicating without words in the way that twins often do. Finally, Lyravel nodded. There are others, she said. 200 slaves in this section alone. We can't leave them. Valandra felt her heart sink. The mission plan called for extracting just the princesses. Evacuating 200 additional people would be nearly impossible. Your Highness, we don't have the resources to. Then we don't go, Miravel said firmly. These people have protected us for 5 years. We don't abandon them now. Valandra looked into their eyes and saw something that reminded her powerfully of their mother. Absolute determination that would not be moved by practical arguments. She activated her communicator. Chen, we have a problem. Marcus's voice crackled back. What kind of problem? The princesses won't leave without the other slaves. We're talking about 200 additional people. There was a pause. Then Marcus said something that made Valandra understand why humans had such a reputation for impossible missions. Then we take them all. Rodriguez. How much explosive do you have? Enough to bring down the whole section, Captain. Good. New plan, people. We're not just rescuing the princesses. We're liberating the entire slave quarter. What followed was 30 minutes of the most intense fighting Valandra had ever experienced. Marcus and his team moved through the station like a force of nature, disabling guard posts and freeing slaves. Rodriguez's explosions cut power to entire sections, plunging areas of the station into darkness where the humans had the advantage. The princesses proved they were their mother's daughters. Lyravel organized the freed slaves into medical groups, treating the wounded and helping the weak. Miravel gathered makeshift weapons and led groups of stronger slaves against their former captors. But the syndicate was not helpless. Alarms blared throughout the station. Security teams converged on the slave quarters. Heavy weapons were brought to bear against the escape routes. We're not going to make it, Johnson reported over the radio. Too many guards between us and the ship. Marcus was silent for a moment. Then he made a decision that would haunt Valandra's memories for years to come. Take the slaves and the princesses, he ordered. Get them to the ship. I'll hold off the reinforcements. Captain, you can't face them alone. That's an order. Get my people home. Valandra saw Marcus disappear around a corner, heading toward the sound of approaching boots. Explosions and weapons fire echoed through the tunnels as he bought them time with his life. The evacuation to the ship was chaos. 200 freed slaves stumbling through unfamiliar corridors, supported by the human team and guided by the two princesses who had become leaders in the darkness of Tartarus Station. As their ship launched, the last thing they saw was Tartarus Station exploding from the inside. Marcus's final gift, making sure the Syndicate could never use this place to hurt anyone else again. Princess Liravel watched through the viewports as the station died in fire. "He saved us," she whispered. "That human saved us all." Princess Miravel stood beside her sister, tears streaming down her face. "He kept his promise. He brought us home." But they all knew the cost. Captain Marcus Chen, the human who had refused to give up on two lost princesses, had paid the ultimate price for their freedom. The distant prophet limped through hyperspace toward the Velthari capital. Its engines wheezed and sparked from battle damage, and its cargo holds were packed with freed slaves who had never imagined they would see their homeworlds again. Princess Liravel moved between the refugees, treating wounds and offering what comfort she could. Her 5 years of captivity had transformed her into a skilled medic, able to work with limited supplies and desperate conditions. She had learned to heal not just bodies, but spirits broken by cruelty and despair. Princess Miravel stood watch at the ship's sensors, her eyes never leaving the displays that showed them the path home. She had become a warrior in the darkness of Tartarus Station, someone who could make hard decisions and carry the weight of other people's lives. The makeshift knife had been replaced by proper weapons, but her watchful intensity remained the same. Captain Velandra piloted their damaged ship with the skill of someone who had flown through more battles than she cared to count. But even her steady hands shook when she thought about the message she would have to deliver to the Empress. Marcus Chen was gone. The human who had made this rescue possible had died to ensure their escape. "Contact from the palace," reported Corporal Johnson. "The Empress wants to speak with us directly." Velandra activated the communication system. The holographic image of Empress Zarathis appeared on the bridge, and for a moment, mother and daughters stared at each other across 5 years of separation. "My girls," the Empress whispered. "My beautiful girls." Both princesses stepped forward, and Velandra saw their eyes shift through the full spectrum of Velthari emotions. Silver with joy, gold with love, blue with sadness for all the time they had lost. "Mother," Liravel said, her voice breaking, "we never stopped believing you would find us. We never stopped singing the Morning Star song," added Miravel. "Every night, we remembered." The Empress reached toward the hologram as if she could touch her daughters through the display. "Are you hurt? Are you well?" "We're alive," Liravel replied. "That's what matters now." The reunion was cut short when alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Private Williams called from the engine room. "We've got major system failures. Hyperdrive is failing, and life support is running on emergency power." Velandra checked their position. "We're still 6 hours from Velthari space. We're not going to make it." On the hologram, the Empress turned to someone off-screen. "Dispatch the rescue fleet immediately. Full medical support." "Already en route, Your Majesty," came the reply. As they waited for rescue ships, Liravel told her mother about their years in captivity. They had survived by protecting each other and the other slaves around them. They had learned that leadership meant serving others, not commanding them. They had discovered that strength came not from power, but from the refusal to let suffering break your spirit. Miravel spoke of the human captain who had given his life for their freedom. "He could have taken just us, Mother. It would have been safer, easier, but when he saw the other slaves, he chose to save them all. He said humans have a rule, no one left behind." The Empress listened to every word, her expression growing more thoughtful with each detail. These were not the children she had lost 5 years ago. These were young women who had been forged in fire and emerged stronger than steel. When the rescue ships arrived, the transfer of refugees took hours. Medical teams worked to stabilize the most seriously injured, while transport shuttles ferried the freed slaves to safety. The princesses refused to leave until every last refugee was safely aboard the rescue vessels. The journey back to the capital world became a parade. News of the rescue spread throughout the empire. Crowds gathered at spaceports and landing platforms. Signs appeared reading "Welcome Home" in dozens of languages. But the most moving sight was the Empress herself, standing on the palace landing pad without ceremony or guards, waiting to hold her daughters again. The reunion was private, but everyone in the palace could hear the sound of a family coming back together. For the first time in 5 years, laughter echoed through the crystal corridors. Later that evening, the Empress sat with her daughters in her private chambers. They looked older than their years, marked by experiences no royal children should have endured, but they were alive. They were home. And they were still her girls. "Tell me about Captain Chen," the Empress said. "I want to understand the man who brought you back to me." Lyravel and Miravel shared the story of their rescue. Marcus had not just been a soldier following orders, he had been a father trying to save daughters he would never have, carrying the hope of a parent who understood loss too well. He talked about his own daughter. Lyravel said, "Sarah." He said she would have been proud to know that her death wasn't meaningless, that it led him to save other children. The Empress was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Tomorrow, I will address the Imperial Council. There will be changes in how we govern, how we treat those who cannot protect themselves. Your Captain Chen showed us a better way." 3 weeks later, the political changes began. The Empress announced the abolition of slavery throughout Velthari space. She established rescue operations to locate and free enslaved beings across the galaxy. She created new laws protecting refugees and providing sanctuary for those fleeing oppression. The Imperial Council resisted at first. Some argued that these changes were too expensive, too idealistic, but when the princesses appeared before them and told their story, when they spoke of the human captain who had died to save people he had never met, the resistance crumbled. "We learned something in the darkness," Princess Miravel told the assembled counselors. "We learned that a civilization is measured not by its power, but by how it treats the powerless." Captain Chen understood this. It's time we understood it too. The changes were not easy. Restructuring an empire to prioritize compassion over conquest required years of work, but the freed slaves from Tartarus Station became the first graduates of new programs that helped refugees integrate into Velthari society. Many of them became advocates for others still trapped in similar situations. 1 month after the rescue, Velthari sensors detected a faint emergency beacon at the edge of their space. A single escape pod, barely functional, drifting toward their patrol routes. Captain Velandra was among the team that investigated. When they opened the pod, they found Marcus Chen, unconscious and severely injured, but alive. He had survived the explosion of Tartarus Station by stealing a syndicate escape pod and rigging its life support to last far longer than designed. For weeks, he had drifted through space, using every bit of his engineering knowledge to stay alive long enough to reach safety. When Marcus finally woke up in the Palace Medical Center, the first face he saw was Empress Zarathis, sitting beside his bed. "The girls?" he asked weakly. "Safe," the Empress replied. "Home, free." Marcus smiled and closed his eyes. "Good. That's good." The Empress studied his scarred face. "Why did you do it? Why did you risk everything for people you had never met?" Marcus opened his eyes and met her gaze. "Your Majesty, someone once told me that the universe is a cold, dark place. But sometimes, if we're lucky, we get the chance to light a candle against that darkness. Your daughters were my candle. All those slaves we freed, they were everyone's candle." 6 months later, at a ceremony watched by billions across the galaxy, Marcus Chen became the first non-Velthari to be formally adopted into the royal house. The Empress declared him her brother-in-arms and gave him a new title, Protector of the Lost. The ceremony ended with Princess Lyravel and Princess Miravel presenting Marcus with a gift, a crystal pendant in the shape of a star. But this one was whole, not broken in half. Engraved on it were words in both Velthari and human languages. No one left behind. As the years passed, the story of the rescue became legend. Children throughout the Empire learned about the human captain who had refused to abandon hope. The phrase, "no one left behind," entered Velthari culture as a sacred promise. Marcus established training programs that taught others how to find and rescue enslaved beings. Teams of humans and Velthari worked together, carrying on his mission to light candles against the darkness. The Empress often found herself thinking about the changes that had come to her empire. They had started as the mightiest military force in their part of the galaxy, Now they were known as the greatest force for compassion and justice. And it had all begun with a human warrior who understood that some things were worth dying for, and even more worth living for. On quiet evenings, the royal family would gather in the garden behind the palace. The Empress would sing the Morning Star song while her daughters harmonized, their voices carrying across the crystal spires of the capital. Sometimes Marcus would join them, his rough human voice adding a new melody to their ancient lullaby. They were no longer the same people they had been before the war, before the loss, before the miracle of finding each other again. But they were family, bound not just by blood but by the understanding that love means never giving up on those who matter. And somewhere in the darkness of space, other families torn apart by cruelty and war heard about the Velthari rescue operations and dared to hope that their own candles might still be burning, waiting for someone to find them and bring them home.